what I'm going to do is just in just a few minutes, just give you an update on what the outcome of some actions that the industry and forest owners have taken as a result of the event over in Tolaga Bay there a couple of months ago. I was actually over in Gisborne just 2 weeks ago, and the main beach at Gisborne, that's Tolaga Bay, but the main beach of Gisborne, those of you who know the main beach of Gisborne, has got a lot of material like that on it, not quite as impressive as that, but there's a lot of wood there, so if someone doesn't clean it up, then the surfies and the fishermen are going to have some fantastic bonfires on the beach at Gisborne this summer, I suspect. The workshop was organised, convened by the Forest Research Committee, really because we said, well, look, this event has happened. The industry has to be seen to be responding and doing something to address these issues, because we'd had the event down in Motueka at Moriha just a few months before that, and then Tolaga Bay followed soon after that. The sort of, I guess the view was that what came out of this workshop that we convened in Auckland was that doing nothing is just not an option for us, because all of the experts from NIWA, the weather forecasting people, the soils people, hydrology people are saying this will happen again, and they are becoming more intense and probably more frequent. So the next time one of these comes along, and forest industry people have to get up and defend what they have done since the last one, probably wouldn't be a great space to be if the answer was, well, we haven't done anything. So as I say, the experts are saying we can expect more of this. The regulators and the public are certainly, and the wider community are certainly likely to sort of push for change as a result of some of these things that are happening. And I guess Kit's really said it. Our industry's social licence to operate is very clearly at risk in parts of the country as a result of this. And we know from feedback from MPI, Te Uraraka, certainly the attitude in Wellington is certainly pretty problematic about encouraging radiata forestry through various government incentives and encouragement schemes on this type of country. So, what's being done? I guess there's three things we just wanted to touch on. The NES plantation forestry, the NES for plantation forestry. It does provide a more set of consistent rules across the country. It only came into being and into practice early this year, I think in May this year. So we do have to give that a chance to work, and it is certainly going to result in change with the zonings, the red, orange, yellow, green zonings. Then that is going to result in change and hopefully some more consistent practices or rules across the country. The industry had been working on a set of forest practice guides for some time. I think they've been working on these for probably 18 months, and these were very close, or these have now been released. They were released, I think, David, last 2 weeks ago. Yeah, Friday a couple of weeks ago. So they're out there. There's 28 of those, and that's a pretty comprehensive list of guides for managing, forestry operations out there on the hills. And then, as I said, we convened this erosion-prone workshop in Auckland on the 2nd of August, and it was very much about really assessing our options for mitigating the impacts of harvesting on steep country and determining what do we do going forwards, so that we do have a plan on what we are going to do and what we need to do differently. And the other thing I haven't put on there is that there was also a field day to the Moriha Forest. Now, this was organised by Sally and the Environment Committee a few weeks ago, and took out some regulators and some environmental NGO groups from the Nelson area, and really just showed them what the practical issues are of managing harvesting operations on the steep erosion-prone land. And I think when they get up there and they see it and they stand there with the forest operations people and they explain just what the options are, then I think they start to understand the difficulty and the complexity of some of these issues. So what are the key messages that came out of the workshop in Auckland on the 2nd of August? These extreme weather events are going to become more frequent. The hydrology people will certainly tell you that if you get enough rain, then you'll get, no matter what the forest cover, no matter what the ground cover, you'll get catastrophic slope failure, and you are going to get inundation of those floodplains when you get these high intensity rainfall events. The events that Kit referred to, the 60 mils of rain an hour, and you get that over a sustained period of 4 or 5 hours. There was certainly agreement at the workshop that by everyone, I don't think anyone said that the highest priority has got to be stopping that woody debris going down the waterways. The material you see on the beaches and in the rivers is not all got square ends on it, but there certainly is material in there which has come off the cutover and has been mobilised when these slopes have failed. So we need to, our operations need to be sort of saying, how do we minimise, how do we reduce that occurrence? We note the workshop certainly noted that changes are going to be needed to forest operations and the way they're planned, and particularly how we sort of manage that post-erosion, that post-harvest erosion risk. I think there was certainly a view that when these events happen, just turning our backs on it and saying, well, it's not our problem. It's the downstream community, the downstream landowners, or the council's problems. It's probably not a winning strategy. That the industry does have to actually accept some ownership of helping and assisting to clean up these events, and that is happening, certainly happening on the East Coast. And if we don't accept that some change is needed, then what happens? It gets imposed by others. So where are we at? The workshop outcomes have been summarised and they have been circulated back to the people that attended for feedback. We have got quite a bit of feedback from people that need to be incorporated into the final report. The report identifies some near-term management actions that we can take, particularly around felling practice to reduce breakage, ensuring that we do pull back, slash and logging residue so that it's in a secure place and can't enter waterways. In places, slash barriers are probably appropriate, and some of the companies over there have already either started putting those in place or certainly investigating them. And then improving engagement and communication with neighbours, and I think there's some good models that have been developed in the Nelson area. We heard about them from the Nelson Forest people, where they do have an active program of engaging and communicating with the neighbours, so that when something does happen, then there's already a relationship there that they can work on, and the neighbours know that certain things will happen, that the forest owners will take some responsibility. There's a number of medium-term investigations around improving our risk assessment methods. The land use zoning that underpins the NES is based on some pretty old land use capability classifications that were probably done 30, 40 years ago now. So, with new technology, there are means to improve that, improve those risk, those hazard areas. We've identified a project to look at alternative felling methods on steep country, particularly some of the felling heads that can be used on mechanised machinery, to fell differently that can help with breakage. Commercial options for residues. That's a big contributing factor on the East Coast has been that there are no commercial market options for a lot of that material, which would be recovered and wouldn't be left on the cutover if you were closer to a residue using plant, such as in the Bay of Plenty or down in Hawke's Bay. There are some options, I think, that need to be looked at around how do we plan at a catchment level. That's always complex when there's a multitude of different forest ownerships, but I think forest owners acknowledge that there's probably a need to look at how they can work together to actually look at things on a more catchment landscape basis. And again, if they don't do that, then there's a pretty good chance the regional councils will take control of that process. And then looking forwards, as Kit said, maybe there are some places out there that shouldn't be planted back, certainly in radiata pine. There may be some other options for that country and other species. And we're just finally, where to from here? The report needs to be finalised and circulated back out to industry. We need to prioritise those actions. We can't do everything, so we've got to determine priorities, engage with wider stakeholders, and then commission and get underway the work that's been identified and recommended from the workshop. And some of that is already into the draft Forest Growers Levy Trust work program for next year, and I know is being incorporated into some MB sort of sustainable farming type bids also. So thanks very much.